We finally got that big needed balance patch, and boy does the game feel a lot better, even to your friendly neighborhood Calico main Ansonex, and there's one big quirk I haven't seen anyone mention with the update. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back as always to another episode of Deadlock Weekly, where we go all over all the news, patches, community drama, and highlights of the week in Deadlock every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We finally had the big balance patch we've been asking for the past few weeks, guys. The outer teleporters are gone, heroes like Calico, Sinclair got nerfed, Infuser finally got some much needed tweaks, and I think all this stuff is awesome. This is just like they addressed everything that, or I shouldn't say everything, but they addressed all the stuff that we had really been complaining about for the past month or so, and they just really cooked with this patch, really ran the ball right up the middle, knew what they needed to hit, and hit all the stops that they needed to as it comes to all those balance changes. But there were some things that were a bit off about this patch, especially if you played in the first couple hours after it dropped. For example, the Curiosity Shop had moved to a place that it now no longer is, and you could still see through the bridge from the triple camp on Green Lane. And I've got a theory here, and that if you notice, the patch released at 4:36 Pacific Standard Time on Friday, which is the time zone where Valve's office in the West Coast of the United States is located. I think the devs had an unfinished patch at closing time on Friday, but knew how bad the community was clamoring for it, and I think they pushed out what they had, knowing it likely probably had a few issues, but overall would increase the quality of the game, and I'm very thankful that they did this because it absolutely did increase the quality of the game. This is a playtest. We can deal with some texture changes, or if the Curiosity Shop gets messed up for a game or two and you gotta scoot it back, that's fine. Just push out this patch because it was needed. Which again goes back to the point that I've made a few times, that ultimately by playing the in-development version of this game, you're checking the box saying you're all right with stuff like this happen. Doesn't mean we shouldn't point out when things like this pop up and need fixing, but this is what our purpose of being a tester is, to point that stuff out, but it also doesn't mean that the devs need to stay after dinner on Friday night to polish things up. I'm sure we'll have another hot fix next week to tighten up a couple of the holes that the patch did open that I'm sure we've probably all seen at this point. But back to the content of the patch, the outer teleporters being removed is the biggest element. I believe the thesis at my core that I said in my How 3 Lanes Changed Deadlock video, that connecting a majority of the lanes at 10 minutes encouraged just rapid snowballing, and I think all of us saw that happen, and it only became more and more frequent to treat yellow and green as one lane with 4 objectives. And then at the same time, the wall jumping rework I think is a huge improvement. The movement of this game for me is a real highlight. I love the movement of this game, and making the skill floor lower in order to allow more players to experience and utilize it is awesome. So you can catch me bouncing around, dude. I'm probably going to pick up Lash pretty soon. I'm just saying. Speaking of just saying, I'm just saying I've already felt the game state improve. You do not need to worry about pushing green and then someone who like teleports in from the yellow jungle on the other side of the map because it's just that quick. You don't need to worry about that anymore. And you know, we're not at the 4-lane level of split push viability where like Wraith or McGinnis could run down a whole lane. I didn't feel like I was being punished nearly as badly for split pushing in the games that I've played since the patch dropped. So quick check-in on the community, guys. I've been looking through the Discord and the Reddit. Let me know how you feel in the comments, but I haven't seen anybody say a bad thing about this patch, which honestly is a common theme with Deadlock patches. It feels like every single time that we get a patch, the entire comment section of the patch is just like, yes, thank you so much, yes, praise Valve, praise Yoshi, thank you, which I frankly agree with. All these patches kind of rock. Valve's cooking. And so what do you think? Leave it down in the comments. And so guys, let's crack into Deadlock Fight Night here a little bit. I did see you guys talking about how you're looking for a little bit more stats and breakdowns, whatnot, so I'm not going to do a full, complete, like wall-to-wall post-game analysis, but I've got a little bit more info for you here. The first big thing is that this was a $2,000 prize pool this week as compared to the normal $1,000. That's a huge step up, so congrats to Deadlock Fight Night, the people running that in general, and then the players that actually get to take it home. And so to start us off, in the EU, one win takes victory for the second time in a row, which it was a huge first map for ABL on Calico. Love to see that with the hard carry. But VP fought back on map 2, more rounded team performance, but ultimately a bad day for Mo and Krill, and the rest of VP on map 3 ended with a 1-win victory after some absolutely dominant lane performances from 1-win on the third map. Really interesting to see these two go blow for blow week by week. Really feels like these two are rounded out as the top 2 teams in EU. You definitely want to tune in this Wednesday. You can see the link to the channel and this week's matches down below. Back over here in North America, Hydra Nation wins their 3rd in a row, defeating the LARP Lords in a 2-0 duo off the backs of great performances from Young Cal, Grokane, and Buds. And one more thing on Deadlock Fight Night, guys. Connor Knudsen with Gamehouse put out a great few-minute read article this week. Definitely take a look. I love that there's more content popping up around esports and stuff like that, and I want to support that. So, guys, definitely take a look at the article that I'm leaving down the description. Great little few-minute read on this week's Fight Night and just how the event is rounding out in general. And so you can find that down below. And so I got a new segment for you guys, some win rates. If you like this, definitely let me know. If you don't like it, definitely let me know. I'm very open to adding in segments, getting rid of them as you guys see fit. We're still only on week 4 here, so definitely learning as we go along. So obviously we've had a patch this week, so we'll come back around next week and compare this week's to next in order to see how the patch actually shakes things up. But since this is the first week that we're doing it, we'll compare it for the first time next week. And so looking at our real winners, the obvious one is 7. If you've been paying any attention at all, I'm sure you've just been seeing 7 win games and really put the team on his back. But Lash also really well, doing really well as well. The emphasis on verticality on the new map is super beneficial for Lash, and it was very easy for Lash to dominate on the lower elos because most players either didn't know how to get up there to counter Lash in the mid lane or didn't care to counter him in the mid position. And if you don't counter him, he's just going to stomp you. And so a lot of people would just wind up feeding him and his teammate in lane. But I did find Sinclair's win rate to be strikingly low, so I'm curious for your theories as to why this is. Why do you think Sinclair is getting dogged? And so we'll definitely bulk up this segment next week once we have some comparisons to get into, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how the patch winds up affecting things. And so that's all I got for you this time, guys. I want to thank you so very much for watching and ask that if you did enjoy the video, we are at like 960 something subscribers. It would mean the world to me this week, especially if you would hit subscribe so that we could get over that block to 1,000. That's just a huge goal for me and the channel, and I personally would just feel so grateful. So if you would feel so inclined, I would very, very, very much appreciate a subscription this week, much more than most. So thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Peace.